That is so good. Hasbro, you guys popped off. That looks really good. Dude, they popped off, bro. Oh my gosh, it looks so good.
Originally, I was not going to cover this figure at all. The toy community's reactions to it were too intense, and I didn't really feel like opening the can of worms that this figure right here will likely be. But I had a lot of people reach out to me and wanted to hear an optimistic point of view, so hopefully this will suffice. I can't guarantee that this video will be a very positive one, but I'm going to go in with an open mind. Today, we are going to be taking a look at by far the most controversial toy of 2025, the Marvel Legends Maximum Series Spider-Man, and see if it lives up to the Maximum name. I want to structure this video around 3 questions. Why are people so angry? Is the figure any good? And should you buy it? I feel like this will help get some clarity on how the figure is as a toy, as well as examine how the community feels about it and what that means for the line going forward. With that being said, I might say some things in this video that you plainly just disagree with, and that's totally fine. Drop a comment here or DM me at FinDeets on Instagram, and I would love to chat with you. But please try to watch this video with an open mind and know that I'm coming at this topic from a place of earnestness, and keep the comment section civil. We all like collecting toys. We all want these figures to be good. I'm excited to dive into talking about this figure and break down how I feel about it, but first we need a quick overview of what this figure even actually is. In January of 2025, Hasbro announced on a live stream the start of a brand new line of figures, the Maximum line. The Maximum series of Marvel Legends seem to be high-quality 6-inch releases with a lot of accessories and seemingly priced in a deluxe pricing bracket. This figure costs $50, while the standard Marvel Legend release costs about $25, and from what I understand, these releases aim to be the definitive offerings of these characters from Hasbro. As the line grows, that statement might be proven wrong, but from where we are right now in 2025, after one release, it feels like that was this figure's goal. I don't think when I got my first look at this figure that I could have predicted how vitriolic the community's response to a figure could be. At first look, people seemed really excited about it, and why wouldn't they be? Marvel Legends is most likely the most accessible way to get a Spider-Man figure, and for one to look this good, it was really exciting. Hasbro was very slow to reveal the price though, and when it was finally revealed, fans of the line were outraged. I did a live stream with my buddy Spider Criminal when this figure was revealed, and knowing Hasbro, we predicted the price pretty spot on.
35? That would be a dream. It's not happening for 35. It's
35.
not.
It looks perfect. I bet you it's going to be like 50.
Minimum floor is $50. Minimum. It is down here at 50, and I don't want it to be, but it could be.
Discussion around this figure started to heat up, and it got to the point where if you were going to buy this figure, you were going to upset someone. Every single Reddit thread and every Instagram comment section became a battleground for Hasbro meat riders or frugal penny pinchers. It feels like very few people are able to discuss this toy with a balanced perspective. You either have to think that it's an abomination or think it's God's gift to humanity, and I personally find neither to be the case. Toy collectors have let internet tribalism infiltrate and fester in a community based around collecting and displaying plastic toys, and it's really disheartening to see. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, Finn, do not diminish how I feel and try to minimize this situation by calling my hobby collecting plastic toys. Listen, I get it. I have been doing toy photography and collecting action figures for over 13 years, and it is a huge source of joy in my life. But dude, let's be real. These are plastic toys that most of us started collecting when we weren't even old enough to drive. Now, this line is mostly catered to adults these days, but that does not excuse actual fully grown adults losing their minds over something as inconsequential as a Spider-Man figure. We will get into the price a bit later and see if the figure is actually worth it, as that seems to be the most contentious part of this discussion, but first, I want to see if the figure is even good in the first place. Let me just get this out of the way. This is a Marvel Legends Spider-Man. If you were expecting Hot Toys quality to be coming out of Hasbro, this just isn't that. But is it good? Extremely, in my opinion. This figure uses a brand new body mold from what I can tell, which is essential for this to even begin to enter the GOAT conversation. When it was first revealed, I thought it was the Renew Your Vows sculpt, but that was quickly debunked. This Spidey is slimmer than the Renew Your Vows and has upgraded articulation, pretty much making that figure useless if you have this one. A big selling point for this is the completely pinless body. Pins never really mattered to me Personally, they always felt like a talking point that was always made to feel more important than it actually is. But they look good here, so I'm not complaining. There is some great muscle definition, and the joints are in all the right places. I would have loved some sculpted webs, but I don't remember the last time Hasbro even tried on a comic Spidey. The mask sculpt is pretty good and seems to be going for a McFarlane style and does a good enough job. You could make the case that this is like a 90s Mark Bagley sculpt, but I feel like this whole figure looks to be based off of Todd McFarlane's art in the early 90s. And when compared to the previous offering from Hasbro, this is a godsend. But what is not a godsend is this Peter Parker head sculpt. What art style is this even trying to replicate? A bad one? I don't remember Peter Parker looking like this, especially not in that run. The head looks genuinely terrible. But by far, my biggest complaint with the entire figure is the gummy joints. I hate when a figure's joints are so tight that they become hard to articulate, and with the gummy arm pegs, this figure feels a little too fragile in very essential areas. A Spider-Man figure's upper body is necessary for all web shooting, swinging, and fighting poses, so for there to be this much resistance when moving his shoulders, it worries me. The paint on the Maximum Spidey is fantastic, honestly. The line work is really great and much better than pretty much any previous offering by Hasbro. They knocked it out of the park. There's so many small lines, and I don't really see any bleeding or misprinting on my figure. I said my figure, we'll get to the QC issue soon. There is a weird spot on the front of my figure that isn't great, but that's pretty much the only issue here. Moving the Spidey is pretty solid for the most part, and as I mentioned previously, I really don't like how my shoulder joints feel, and a downside to pinless joints is they often feel tough to articulate. There's so much resistance, and the joints often feel a little too tight due to the way pinless joints work. The figure is not as easy to just pick up and pose as something like the Amazing Fantasy, which might not be an issue for some, but it makes me personally want to sit around and just pose this guy less than I would like. We have a nice new neck joint that is infinitely better than the garbage neck joint on the Renew Your Vows body. It seems to be trying to incorporate the G.I. Joe style of head and neck articulation, which is something that I've always begged for, but here, it's better in theory than in execution. The range is good, but not amazing, and that disappoints me. There's a great opportunity for some crazy neck movement and head articulation, and sadly, it's just alright, which for this figure is just not good enough. That being said, this is most likely the most articulated Hasbro Spidey ever released, and I'm really happy with the range of his joints. We have some decent drop-down hips, but I have noticed that when you push them maybe too far, you get some noticeable paint rub, and I hate that. What's the purpose of a highly articulated sculpt if it can't withstand articulating it? But we get joints in all the places you'd hope, toe joints included, which is a necessity. Now, the accessories seem to be this figure's biggest selling point, and are they good? Yeah, they're pretty solid. What they sometimes lack in quality is made up for by sheer quantity of stuff you get in this package. You get interchangeable hands, swappable forearms, webs he can hold, webs he can shoot, a web shield, a grabby web, multiple head sculpts, and a spider sense effect. That is a nice variety, but to put it plainly, some of these accessories are kinda mid. I cannot believe they would include web lines without a bendy wire. How are you supposed to display him with these? You could make the argument that these are good for kids when they want to play with their Spider-Man, but this figure is obviously not directed towards children. And as I mentioned before, this unmasked head sculpt is quite ugly. These web shooter arm pieces are cool, I wish they could articulate in some way, but it is nice to have them. As a whole, even with its flaws, right now I feel like this might just be the best Marvel Legends Spider-Man ever made, period. I don't think it's my favorite, I still love my Amazing Fantasy, but this new Maximum Spidey is pretty awesome. But some of you are thinking what I'm thinking, which is this. It may be an incredible figure, but is it incredible for $50? The first thing we've got to talk about here is the part that basically everyone who's bought a Spider-Man figure in the last 5 years has already talked about. The price. About 7 months ago when I released my Why We Need Marvel Legends Spider-Man video, I mentioned that one of the things that makes a Marvel Legends figure a Marvel Legend is the affordability. First and foremost, a Marvel Legends figure has to be affordable. Now there are obvious exceptions to this rule, such as a HasLab or deluxe figure, but a 6-inch regular character has got to be something that your average collector can afford and buy. And this just does not fit that criteria at all. No matter how you justify it or how bad you want to have the definitive Hasbro Spider-Man action figure, $50 is just a tough pill to swallow, plain and simple. To my ears, when I hear $50, I immediately expect import quality, and not to get ahead of myself, but frankly, I don't think this figure is of import quality. I don't know how long you all have been collecting for, but when I started collecting, Legends were $15. But that was 13 years ago, and times have definitely changed. Granted, you just were not getting the amount of stuff you get here for that price, and that is definitely the biggest factor here. According to the inflation calculator, if Legends cost $15 in 2011, then they should only cost about $21 in today's money. But as collectors sadly know, that is just not how the collecting market is in 2025. You will be hard-pressed to ever find a Marvel Legends figure on the pegs at any store outside of Ollie's or Ross for less than $25, which according to inflation alone is more than they should traditionally cost. But we know that's not the full story. Figures today, in my opinion, easily outclass the figures of the early 2010s in almost every way, making them justify their price a bit more. There is a reason collectors get excited when Hasbro gets a chance to redo a figure they did in 2012, because their figures have progressed in a way that makes figures from that time pretty much obsolete. Whether it's the pinless joints, high-quality face prints, better articulation, or more accessories, sometimes, Marvel Legends have only gotten better in my opinion. But that's just a justification for paying $25. That is half of what this Maximum Spider-Man costs. Are a bunch of translucent web accessories, some hands, and some head sculpts worth a whole second figure? This Spidey alone costs the price of a modern 2-pack, and that feels hard to justify for me personally. Look at this G.I. Joe 2-pack that Hasbro also released, costing the same as the Maximum Spidey, but coming with 2 whole figures and a similar amount of accessories. I know they have to pay for the license, but that price disparity does not feel good as a consumer. We also know Hasbro is able to deliver an incredible figure on a new mold for less than $30, so that means that the rest of the cost for this guy lies in everything he comes packaged with. I like that Hasbro went all out and delivered a great figure with a lot of accessories, but as a whole product, I feel like $40 would have been the sweet spot. And that's being generous, because with the issues people have been having with this toy, it's hard to justify a normal Legends price tag. And this is the section of the video where I feel that the biggest Maximum Spider-Man haters are the most justified. Since the Maximum Spidey's release, I have been seeing non-stop quality control problems. A figure that costs this much should never have this many glaring QC issues. With a price tag of $50, you have to make sure that the quality is top tier, and that sadly doesn't feel like the case here. Although, you could argue that we are seeing more QC photos pop up online because people either want this figure to fail, or that we are only seeing this many QC issues because the figure has been a really popular topic to discuss and is likely selling well. But you could say the same thing about Hasbro's other lines, and I hardly see them have this many blunders, at least to this magnitude. This actually feels equivalent to a McFarlane Toys figure in regards to its quality control, and that really disappoints me. Now I want to look at this Maximum Spider-Man next to some of my favorite Spidey figures and see how well he stacks up. Next to a Revoltech or Mafex, he falls short in my opinion, and he should, because he costs like 2/3 of the price, or half depending on where you buy your imports, so obviously he won't be able to compare to these premium toys. But to the people saying he's a worthy replacement for an import Spidey of your choosing, I have to fundamentally disagree. Sure, he has a lot of accessories and is really well articulated, but he just doesn't reach the heights that a figure like the Revoltech 2.0, Sentinel, or Mafex Spider-Man do. He doesn't have sculpted web lines, he doesn't have any paint shading, the accessories he does come with don't compare in my opinion, and he doesn't move as smoothly or as well as these other figures. But like I said, it feels a bit unfair to equate him with figures that retail for more than he does. Although, when your figure costs $15 more than an import I can find in Target, it makes me feel like the price isn't justified. But let's be fair here and compare this figure to other figures in the same line. Here he is next to the Amazing Spider-Man and the Renew Your Vows, and I think objectively, he is just a better, more well-rounded piece to add to your collection. I love the Amazing Fantasy and he's probably still my favorite, but the Maximum has better articulation, much more accessories, and an all-around well-rounded look. Other more traditional Spideys like the Pizza Spidey, Retro, or Renew Your Vows have bad paint apps, some wonky sculpting, and again, less articulation. When put in the context of the Marvel Legends line, the Maximum Spider-Man is a great product in a vacuum. But should you buy it? Well, that question leads me to ask, what void does this figure fill? If you have the Mafex, that's your super articulated classic McFarlane figure. If you have the Revoltech 1.0, that is your hyper stylized classic suit. If you have the Amazing Fantasy, it costs half the price and comes with the essentials for an affordable domestic Spider-Man figure. And that makes me ask, who is this figure for? To me, this guy is for the Marvel Legends fan. Some of you watching probably don't even like Marvel Legends very much, and that's fine, and this figure probably won't change your mind. If you're a collector who only really buys domestic and wants the definitive Spider-Man figure for your Legends collection, then I see this as being a worthwhile addition and purchase. But if you have all the import heavy hitters, have been collecting Legends for almost a decade and a half, and have most of the best Spider-Man figures ever made, then to be quite honest, you just don't really need this guy. On its own, in a vacuum, this figure is really, really nice. I've loved the time I've spent posing it and taking pictures. It's easily one of the best figures the Legends line has ever released. I don't want to lose the fact that it is a great toy at the end of the day, but for me, it just isn't necessary. The market is flooded with incredible Spider-Man figures these days. If this figure came out in 2016, the world might have stopped spinning. But it's 2025, and every company under the sun has thrown their hat into the ring to make the best Spider-Man figure. And as good as this figure is, it just doesn't compare to the best in my opinion. The $50 price tag is very steep and might price out a lot of casual collectors, which makes me feel that this figure is a premium product for the hardcore collectors. But if you're a hardcore Spider-Man figure collector, this figure doesn't really do anything unique to justify owning it. I really think this figure would thrive at $40, but with toy prices only going up, it feels like the days of affordability for collectors are over. Before I end this video, I do want to give a quick mention to the incredible team at Hasbro that put this figure together. These guys work so hard to make these figures the absolute best they can be, and you can tell. If mine and most collectors' biggest complaint and hesitation about this Spidey comes from its price, from what I understand, that has nothing to do with the designers. These people love these toys and these characters just as much as we do, and seeing them be personally attacked and harassed over something as frivolous as an action figure is really sad to see. At the end of the day, no one is forcing you to buy this figure. But as a collector and a fan, one who can't always afford the latest and greatest toys, hearing that drives me crazy. Why can't you hope for the best out of a toy line without coming across as a shill? Or why are you not allowed to be critical of something you've spent your money on without looking like a hypocritical hater? If you spend your hard-earned money on something, you're allowed to be critical of what you receive. Just because you pay full price for something, it doesn't mean that you're happy with how much it costs. Some people on the internet will smugly, angrily argue that if you pay $50, you are the reason that prices will continue to rise. If you pay this much up front, you are telling Hasbro that you are comfortable paying that much for figures going forward. And you know what? Maybe they're right. I never claimed to be an expert on the inner workings of a toy company and the economy. I'm just a guy in his mid-20s who likes Spider-Man. But personally, I think I'm gonna pass on the upcoming Maximum Hulk, and if they come out with like a Maximum Deadpool, I'm gonna pass on that too. I can't tell you how to spend your money. I can't tell you what should or should not be worth it to you. Only you can do that. And however you choose to spend your hard-earned money, that is entirely your business. All I can do is share my opinion on something that I care a lot about. I love collecting action figures, and I love Spider-Man more than life itself. And I think this is a really, really great Spider-Man action figure. But it could have been amazing. At the end of the day, I hope you guys found this video interesting. I hope maybe you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed watching it because I enjoyed making it. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.